So my name is Sophie, I'm a People Participation Lead at NSFT, and part of what drew me to this role was because of my lived experience of mental health. From a young age, when I was in high school, I remember feeling feelings of sadness and anxiety, but not really knowing what they were. And alongside some trauma, I really struggled with how to deal with these and kind of understand what was happening to me. So throughout high school, I started to get very worried to leave the house, started to get really worried about connecting with people, talking to people. I was really worried that people were judging me on things. And the way I managed that was through self-harm, and that was one of my coping mechanisms really, until in my 20s. And the feelings that came with that were a lot around guilt and shame. I knew that what I was doing was upsetting people and hurting people that were really close to me, but I didn't know how else to manage things. And one thing I always try and explain about self-harm is I couldn't explain how I was feeling, so it was almost a way of getting those feelings to leave my body without actually having to speak about it. But mental health was something that kind of stayed with me throughout all of high school. And I had a lot of time off school because I was worried about leaving the house. And I spent a long time, I guess, trying to kind of find myself and making sense of the different things that were happening to me. At the time, I didn't know that I was about to have a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. So from what I was feeling at the time was a lot of intrusive thoughts, and thoughts that really scared me. They didn't reflect who I was as a person, and they made me feel like I was a really bad person. And because of the embarrassment around those and the shame I felt, I found it really difficult to tell people about it. So I kept it to myself for quite a long time, and managed it in ways which had a short-term relief for me, but didn't have that long-term effect. And I learned so much, I guess, around now what I was going through. So it got to a point where I couldn't leave the house for about a period of 2 years. I was really scared of contamination, I was scared of germs, I was scared of anything touching my skin, and that included just like wearing shoes and things like that. And my life just felt like it became really controlled by this mental health condition that I didn't know what it was. I couldn't eat off plates, I couldn't use knives and forks. I literally felt like my life was just lived in this little room, in this bubble, and it affected my relationships as well. So because I didn't know what I was going through or how to explain it, I didn't really tell anyone, and I withdrew, which made it so much more difficult for me. And in the end, I just didn't know how to deal with all of these feelings. I was waking up each day and crying and just feeling so much kind of like distress, and it got to a point where I just wanted a break from it. I really just felt like I wanted a switch in my brain that I could turn off, because it felt like I had my voice in my head, but I had another voice in there telling me all these things around OCD. So if you go out, you're going to hurt someone. You know, if you don't do this, something bad is going to happen. And a lot of my thoughts were around my mum. So I'd have to read something 20 times, because if I didn't, the OCD would tell me that my mum would die. So I had all these thoughts, and I felt so much pressure and so much kind of guilt around things. And it just got to a point one day, and I thought, I don't know how to deal with this anymore. And I felt like I'd tried things to try and help, but it got to a point where I did try to take my own life, because I just did not know how to deal with these things. And I guess now I'm in a place where I never ever thought I'd be. I couldn't imagine back then that I would ever have a life where I could go out, I could hold down a job, I could go back to uni, and I could go back to doing the things that I enjoyed as well. That never seemed possible. And there's been so many things which have helped me with that. And it's been a long journey, and I still have those thoughts around obsessions and compulsions now. But I've got confidence in myself to manage them, whereas before I just felt like I'm going to have this life forever. People would tell me back then that things would get better, but I never used to believe it, because I felt like, you don't know what I'm feeling, you don't know what I'm going through. And I just felt as though that was very dismissive. And I went to I remember going to the doctors and saying, look, I just don't know what to do. Nothing is helping. And I remember them giving me a medication and saying, well, if this doesn't help you, nothing's going to help you. And that was kind of the point where I lost hope, I guess, and thought, okay, this is it, this is my life. But so many things have changed since then, and one of the biggest things for me was breaking things down and doing little bits at a time. So because I really used to struggle to get out of the house, I'm a lot more grateful, I guess, for nature and things around me. And it started with going out of the house for like a minute, and I'd have to have support with me. I had someone to support me because I was too anxious to do it myself. And then I'd gradually build that up, so then to a 5-minute walk and then to a 10-minute walk. But being in nature and really learning like the skills of mindfulness is something that's really helped me to manage my OCD and the intrusive thoughts that I have. And a big difference came when I was getting out and I was feeling able to do it on my own. I started to try and do the 10,000 steps a day challenge, and everyone used to say to me before, it sounds really cliche and it does feel dismissive when people used to say it, but do some exercise, you'll feel great. And I would think, well, you don't know what's going on in my head, so that's not going to change anything. But it has changed things for me, and getting out and trying to be really mindful of what's around me and trying to be grateful for those moments has really made a big impact on my life. So I try and get a walk in each day now, or some kind of exercise, and that hasn't helped on its own, but alongside other things my life has completely changed. So starting to do more research around OCD really helped to change things for me, and meeting other people that have experienced OCD was a big game changer, because I started to think, actually, like, maybe I'm not on my own here, and that I can go on to do things. And that's part of the reason why I came into this role, because I've been at that place where I felt that I had nothing left to live for and acted on that. And now, having gone back to uni, having done a master's, I've recently trained in DBT therapy, I want to give someone back that hope that I didn't have, to show that things can get better even when you really feel that you've got nothing left there.